We did our project on beef cattle CAFOs, the history of factory farms. According to Eric Marcus's book, The Meat Market Between 1950 and 1980, the number of U.S. farms with dairy cows fell from 3.65 million to 278,000. Today, large industrial factory farms account for 99.9% of chickens, 97% of chickens who lay eggs, 99% of turkeys, 95% of pigs, and 78% of cattle. The business practices of the CAFO include confines animals to 45 days during the growing season, has to meet the right amount of animal numbers to be considered a CAFO. For beef, it has to be 1,000 or more heads of cattle. For egg hens, it has to be 30,000 or more, and for swine, it depends on the weight of the pigs. Living conditions for the animals. These animals don't learn basic instincts due to the fact that they're raised from birth and confinement. Luckily for beef cattle, the majority of factory farms raise them outside in the open. However, beef cattle are still often castrated and dehorned without typical painkillers. In some instances, beef is raised in feedlots when they typically can't go without shelter and can be raised in the mud, ice, or their own waste. To increase beef cattle's weight, they are fed an unnatural grain diet that is very hard on their bodies, can cause illness, pain, and sometimes death. The word grass raised on packaging means nothing because typically all cattle is raised on grass. You should be looking for the packages that say grass fed and grass finished. Effects of CAFOs on animals, people, etc. Factory farms can produce mass amounts of pollution mainly from the excess waste they produce. Factory farms produce 500 million tons of manure, which is 3 times the amount of sewage. The waste is dumped into open fields and eventually spreads into open waterways, making it unsafe for human and animal consumption. The effect of society is many people don't know the conditions these animals are raised in and or they don't want to know what they're eating. Society has banded together in several well-known groups to help and give the animals more rights. Future predictions for CAFOs. The prediction is unclear. Improving conditions means spending more money, and big companies are not known for spending money on the condition of their animals. As things advance and companies need more money to compete, the one thing is for sure, and that's that they're going to try and cheap out on the CAFOs or containment that the cows are kept in. Solutions to CAFOs. Solutions for CAFOs can be as simple as giving the cows more space and something to entertain them, or comfort them even before they're slaughtered. Groups have banded together to try and improve rights for these animals and almost have enough to make them have the same rights as your dog would.
Approximately 80% of the antibiotics sold in the United States are used in meat and poultry production. Antibiotics have been used since the 1940s and have led to a dramatic decrease in the sickness of consumers and death from infectious diseases. But since antibiotics have been used so much and for so long, antibiotics consumed in meat and poultry has become a major public health threat. Numerous health organizations, including the American Medical Association, American Public Health Association, Infectious Disease Society of America, and the World Health Organization, agree and have called for significant reductions in the use of antibiotics for food and animal production. Arguments against using antibiotics. Use of antibiotics in livestock has been surrounded by controversy since the practice began in the 1940s. The primary target has been the low-level or sub-therapeutic use of antibiotics, primary to promote growth in livestock. There are 2 reasons that the practice concerns some health officials. First, residues may remain in the product, though the breakdown of the active ingredients in the drug and specific withdrawal times before harvest limit this threat. Second, some bacteria may become resistant to antimicrobial drugs. All antibiotics used in food animal production undergo stringent review by FDA to ensure a safe food supply for the end consumer. Effects of using GMOs in livestock. There are a few hot-button issues that seem to be a flashpoint in generating heated debate about the safety of our food supply. Perhaps one of the most volatile of those flashpoints is whether or not genetically engineered GE foods, often called genetically modified organisms or GMOs, are harmful to human and animal health. And the result, the scientific evidence clearly states that the health, well-being, and productivity of animals consuming GE feeds are at least comparable to those of animals consuming conventional feeds, Lewis says. Today, more than 95% of U.S. food productions and animals consume feed containing GE crops. Studies that involve feeding GE crops to livestock are used to evaluate the safety of these crops. About CAFOs. What is a factory farm, or CAFO? A CAFO is an industrialized farm that usually includes factories and large-scale crop fields along with a ton of livestock like cows, chickens, and pigs, who are mainly just raised and slaughtered for their meat. How many animals are raised each year in CAFOs in total? There is approximately 14,809 cattle, 4,436,543 chickens, and 57,370 hogs raised and killed each year.
All right, let's go.
Help me out, bud.
We're slaughtering here. Kill a cow. Get it. Turn around.
There are quite a few ups and downs that come along with purchasing CAFO meat, which is basically just chemically infused, processed, artificially made meat that comes from animals on an industrial scale farm. One, because since we Americans live very busy lives, we need something quick and easy, and because of this, we get frozen processed foods. For example, microwavable meals, frozen meats, and poultry products like chicken with antibiotic filters. These foods are all completely unhealthy, but yet very efficient. This is also good because by 2050, the population of the US is going to increase from 296,000 to 438,000, which corporate farming is needed to feed the growing. On average, there are 30,000 cows on a CAFO, stunned, suspended by the hind limb, stabbed in thoracic cavity, and severance of the cardioid artery and jugular vein. Positives of consuming CAFO meat is that there is a larger quantity. These procedures are not humane. The cows are slaughtered with no anesthesia.
So cows have 1.8 acres to themselves, or 20 acres per 11 cows. Livestock are fed hay, which is pretty healthy, or concentrated grains, which is not so healthy. A way that cows could get sick is if they eat the grains too fast and they build up an excess of lactic acid in their rumen. Cows are also injected growth hormones for fattening, and then the conditions of work might be muddy when it's raining or dry when it's sunny. So cows are usually 18 to 22 months old when they reach the market weight of 1,200 pounds, and about 6.6 million cows are killed each year, or 18,000 cows are slaughtered every day.
So you might be wondering, how do CAFOs control our government? They buy lobbyists by donating to them, and plus they have to follow strict guidelines like the Clean Water Act or the Clean Air Act. So you might be wondering, what happens if you violate these acts? So if you violate the Clean Water Act, it would cost you $2,500 a day or 2 years in a jail. If you violate the Clean Air Act, it would cost you $250,000 in fines and penalties and 5 years in jail. You can help improve CAFOs by going to local farmers markets, passing laws that regulate CAFOs from cramping animals into a tight space, and other wonderful laws.
We did our project on beef cattle.
You're getting slaughtered for me.
Alright, let's go.
Help me out, here, go,
Let's slaughter that. Help me out, go. Get it.